Having observed these creatures for several years, I am obligated to present my findings. They are a quadripedal species that spends the majority of its life walking on its hind legs. They are generally divided into two categories for the purpose of mating to be explained in a further section. Their life cycle is divided into two main categories. They form associations that are relatively simple. Having observed from the ossified remains of similar appearing creatures, they themselves have ascertained their connection with other quadrupedal creatures that resemble them in numerous ways. They use the word ape for the closest of this association, primate for those of further association, and mammal for the most far of association, which contain the same characteristics. All of these quadrupedal creatures have skin covered with a second type of skin that insulates them and is removable. The majority produce offspring directly from their body. I assure you, I was quite as disgusted as you are reading this, but we must press on. They also maintain an internally consistent temperature at all times. As to mating, this is where they excrete fluids into one another through specialized orifices which appear to function solely for procreation. This is assuredly quite different from us, but very interesting to observe, and they seem to place undue importance on it. When these creatures are born, they are in their larval stage. They appear little different from the adult, albeit much smaller. This larval stage has three main sections, the first being the preambulatory, which, obviously, means they cannot locomote themselves. They are solely dependent on the adults of the species during this time. This stage is quite short in comparison to their lifespan. The second larval stage comprises from the end of the preambulatory to the beginning of the pre-mating section. During this stage, the creature grows at an incredibly quick pace and starts to form simple associations with others of its species. The third and final larval stage is the pre-mating section. During this stage, the creature begins to form various characteristics that will enable it to find a mate and reproduce, although this species does not mate until several years after the appearance of these characteristics. The second category of life for this creature is the reproductive stage. During the first part of the reproductive stage, the creature engages in ritualistic competition to ensure that only the best genes are passed on. Not all the creatures seem to engage in these rituals. These are clearly the inferior members of the species who recognize their genes are doomed to failure. After these creatures have mated, they enter the second part of the reproductive stage, the rearing stage. Some associations of creatures do not actively rear their own progeny. This clearly indicates a hive mind, but I have been unable to determine which creature is the queen of the species. The third part of the reproductive stage is the post-rearing stage. During this period, the creature will engage in more child-rearing than it did in the rearing stage, which is syntactically dismaying, but the species is quite numerous, so no reason to fear its extinction. The primary association for these creatures is the family unit, which consists usually of about 20 to 30 larvae and 1 to 3 reproductive stage creatures. Other associations exist, but they are outside the scope of this.